So in this video, we're going to look at how to create a lesson within your modules and of course within your course. Now, in the last videos I've done, my keyboard was making a real clacking sound. It sounded like a machine gun going off. So I've put a towel underneath it this time, and hopefully it's not going to be quite so bad. I've also lifted the mic away from the keyboard, so hopefully it won't sound like someone's trying to shoot you when you're listening to me typing on the keyboard. So here we are in the back end of Thrive Apprentice 4.0 as usual. You can see we've got our course created here, our outline, and again we could go into the design and everything else, but we're not going to do that in this lesson. So we will go to the course itself, and we saw that we had a little summary, we had a cover image on the course, our bio, and we turned comments off on this particular course cover sheet. So we'll go into the content, and in the content we created one module, and that module we called it Preparing for Setup. And if we go into that module, whoops, that's the name, then we created two lessons. Okay, so I did these just to show you that you can move the lessons around should you want to modify what you create. And so in this particular section, what we'll do is we'll add a new lesson. So we could add a module, but we'll add a new lesson. We'll just call this again lesson 3. Hopefully that keyboard clacking is very quiet this time. You have the option of text, audio, or video. Again, I haven't got any videos that I've created on this so far for testing. An audio file can be anything, it can be music, it can be you talking, it could be whatever you want, and of course a text lesson is just basically text. So a lesson summary we can type in there. This is lesson 3, obviously whatever you want. We allow users to comment on this lesson. We're going to say yes, because I've set my user commentary to be down at the lesson level by turning it off in the module and turning it off in the course overview. We now look at the access restrictions or not. So we're giving users free access to this, to all these lessons. But what you could do, for example, is we saw that we had 2 lessons already created there. Then we might make those free. And when we get to lesson 3, we might have in there, listen, these lessons are now only available to people who are logged in members. And at the end of lesson 2, we could have added onto the page an opt-in to join the membership. So you can do this on all your lessons. You can either feed them out in terms of, or show them in terms of what's a restriction level, or you can use the lesson pages themselves for calls to action to get people to actually join the membership. In this way, this just helps you to be able to give out some information for free as a teaser process to get people into your membership program. So we will leave this as free for all users. Our good old cover image, which we've used 1,000 times already. I'll just use that one there. And we say save. So that is the lesson overview of that. And now what we need to do is we can either preview it, which I'll do here quickly. And so here's our lesson. The overview of the lesson. The comments coming up, because we said we wanted to add comments to this. And that's all we have so far. So we come to the lesson then, and we get to the edit stage, and we want to add some content to this particular lesson. So again, we can edit the details, those details we just created, add some resources. I'll go into that later. That's where you just create some links to products. You can see the little linking thing, and if we want to, we can duplicate this lesson if we happen to, if we know that our next lesson is going to be very, very similar in terms of our content layout. But first of all, we'll go into add content. And notice that this little A is here. That means that we're going to be adding this content in through the Thrive Architect page building system. Right up to everything else we've done from the beginning, we've really been working in the theme layout process. So now we're actually going into the Architect plugin and its software. And I've said this before, but once you kind of know how to use one part of Thrive, you pretty much know how to use all of Thrive. Alright, so here's our lesson, and as you can see, the screen looks slightly different because we're now in the actual lesson construct itself, not in the theme process or the overview process. We have a number of different elements that have been added into this. This is because we chose this from our layout when we first set up the our membership site. And so from here, and of course we have our sidebar over here, which is showing what it would look like when someone is actually physically in this lesson. So in here we've got our content that's coming from what we just created before, and now we're going to add in these type of things here. What we're playing with here is these elements on the right hand side. So I will not go through every one of these because it's really kind of pointless. They're very self-explanatory, and you simply can play with them, pull things in, see what they look like, see what options you're given as you do particular things. So we might first of all just pull in some text, and what you do is you just click on it and drag it in to this box. Okay, so we're inside the post content, and I'll write some text for here. What I like to do whenever I'm writing a blog post or doing anything within Thrive is, rather than just keep dragging across from here, I use that's a move button, that's a save button, that's a duplicate button, and that's a delete. I hit the duplicate, and I'll do this about 10 times. And the reason for that is because we have about lesson 3, that's a header, and then here we might have our first heading item. So we might say introduction. Up here we have a text editing tool. We can center it, we can justify it, we can add numbers, whatever, normal sort of things you find in any kind of text editing tool like Word or whatever. And of course, nice little drop down to show us what sort of headers we have. So I'll put a little heading 2 item on this, and of course those fonts that are being used there are what we set up in the template when we went into our template area and set up the fact that we want to have our H1B Montserrat and our H2B whatever the font was, Muley or whatever it was, what size, whether it's bolded, and so on. So I'll put introduction, and then I'll write some text here, and this is our introduction text. And now I might want to bring in another image. So I'll go over here, grab the image, click on the image element, drag that down, and you'll see I can move it around and it tells me where do I want it. And I say, well, I want it to be below this text. That says insert an image. I'm just going to keep inserting the same image here. Getting a bit boring, but insert an image. Once we're on the image, and the same as with the text, I must have put it down below another one, but I will get rid of that one. We come over to the left hand side, and we've now got lots of different elements that we can play with to make this look better. So we might want to put a style around it, maybe a frame, maybe have it lifted with a bit of shadow underneath. Maybe try that lifted style. We might want to, make a circle out of it where we then can adjust, the size. Obviously it's got an egg shape there because it's wider than it is higher, but we can change that. We can go for a rounded corner image and then play with those corners. So we'll choose that one, for example. We could add a link to the image. So if someone clicked on it or went out to another part of our course or an external link, we can change the height and size of the image by playing around with this. So if we don't want it to be completely wide on the screen, we can, using the layout and position, we can go left, center or right. Obviously it's not moving because I'm using the entire width. So if we had a smaller image, we can put padding and margins, so padding on the inside and margins on the outside. Let's say we want to push that down below the text further, we can make that 40. That pushes it down here. Our borders and corners are currently, at the moment we said rounded, so we may increase that. We might say go to 30. We make this a much more rounded image. We might want to put some shadow around the image, so we can click on the drop shadow, maybe give it some direction, maybe give it some extra distance, and now we can see we've got a nice little shadow over here around our image. Oops, let's click back on there. We can, and I love this all through Thrive, we might not want this image to show on mobile. We might only want it to be able to show on the desktop and tablet, so we can just simply unclick that, and if anyone's running this course on their mobile phone, that image won't come up. It's really, really simple. Down here at the bottom of the screen, you'll see that there's the same three icons. What this means is once I've got it set up for a desktop environment, I can now click on the tablet environment and see what it will look like on a tablet, and modify and move things around, make them smaller, make them bigger as appropriate, and then do the same thing for mobile and see what it's going to look like on mobile. 9 times out of 10, depending on whether you're using some of the elements that might have lots of columns or things like that in it, 9 times out of 10, your mobile, tablet and desktop views are going to automatically format themselves. It's kind of rare actually that you have to do a lot of modification with Thrive. Again, if I was to bring in, say, a column element here and put it, say, below this text item, and I had 4 columns in there, then when I'm on mobile, those columns might get a bit squashed up. And so I'd have to then click on the mobile version, click on the columns, go over into the left part of the menu and just simply adjust the sizing of the columns, or click or unclick what's called a wrap text, and it would automatically adjust itself to, so rather than say 4 columns across the screen, it will show 4 columns, one underneath each other. So that's kind of the bare minimum really, or the most I should say, that you actually have to do when it comes to modifying various different things on Thrive from desktop to mobile. So I'll put 2 columns here. When we've got 2 columns on here, we could put an image in one column, we could put a text in the other. So I'll do that. I'll put some text over in this column here. Get up there. Text. And over here on this column, I'll put our famous image again. And then on the columns themselves, when I click on them here on the left, go up into the options, I've then got the same routine. So at the moment, if I look at my breadcrumbs up here, I'm actually on the image, hence the same image options I had as when I was playing with this image. But when I go onto the column, I'm now working in the column itself. So I've got other options here. I can make this column on the left, maybe it's 65% of the width of that total column structure, and the text will automatically change to the 35%. So when I click on that column, it will generally be 35%. Sometimes it comes up as like 34.9 or anything like that. When I go to the columns up here, I can change the gutter width, for example, between these two columns. So I might go to say 30 and put more width between the two columns. This wrap columns button was the one I was talking about before. So if we had been on mobile and these columns were all, let's see what this looks like on mobile and see if we have to do anything. No, it automatically worked it out. So we didn't even have to play with that. But if we had 4 columns, we might have to say, oh, look at that, it automatically wrapped them. This, how good is that? I mean, it just makes building things for the different platforms, desktop, mobile, and tablet. It just makes it so easy. And from here on in, we just simply add the things that we want to into our lesson by adding in our elements on this side. We may have some saved templates that we already had from other things. We can grab them from here by using the templates and symbols option. I won't go into that because that's a whole lesson on its own, and again, but basically what it comes down to is this little save button here. So I might want to save this when I've finished creating it. I might think I really like that setup that I've created, so I'll save it and it will ask me to give it a name. That name will be the template name. Once I've saved that, it's now available here, and I could just drag that in. Ask me what one do I want to use. You can see there's a whole bunch that I've had here from the past, and I might just select that one that I just saved and it will drop it in here. But I won't do that for here because those are not appropriate. But again, it's just a matter of bringing in elements you want. Once you're into part of the course, you might say, I want people to tweet this quote. So when I click into here, I then have all the options on this side as to where is it going to be tweeted, what's the handle, the username, again, layout and position I can change, background style I can change. You can see it's a grey there as it hovers over. When we hover over, it's a blue. When we go to normal, it's the grey. We might want to adjust the size of this. We can see that is at a fixed minimum, maximum, so it's done it automatically. Maybe we don't want that to be quite so wide there. So we might say we want to fix that at, say, 500 pixels, and it will push it in to that size. And, for whatever reason, maybe we want it to be centered, so we'll push it into the center. It really is just a matter of dragging things in and playing around with how they look as to what you want to put into your courses. And you have a multitude of elements that you can bring in here. Guarantee boxes, pricing tables, leads, quizzes. These are coming from the other plugins if you have the Thrive suite. And so once we've finished on our course, I will just remove these other text items here. We'll just pretend we don't need those anymore. Here's little resource boxes, buttons, open up the resource. If we click on this button here, that's coming from the theme because that's what we set up in the theme. So in the theme, we might have some dedicated resources that we want people to use for this particular lesson, or we might go back to the theme and say, look, we don't want to use this as part of the theme, but we might want to add this somewhere in a lesson. We could go back to the theme, we could save this block as a template, that little block again, and then when we come in and we want it in a specific lesson, we drag the templates and symbols block across like we had before. So I might do that actually. I might remove that from the tablet so that we can, the template, so we can actually bring that in at a certain point. Again, that's coming from the template. Mark lesson as complete, and we're done. Or they would if they marked the lesson as complete. So we'll just save our work here. We can now close this. And at the moment, I don't have anything published in this module. So I'm going to publish this lesson. And now you can see there's a publish button comes up. So I'll publish all the lessons. And then I'm going to publish the course. So what we should have now, I'll just check over here when I refresh this. It's either going to come up now, or I might have to go into the course level and publish. We'll see what happens. There we are. How to create a membership site. 3 lessons, preparing for setup. This is the teacher, because this is my course page for that particular course. And start the course. Goes into lesson 1. You see here. There's the URL on lesson 1. Comes into our first lesson. And of course we had lesson 3 was the one that we did most of the work on. I can mark it as complete. Or if I'm not really pushing this boundary of marking as complete, I'm going to lesson 3 over here. And we should see all that stuff that we just did. Excuse the camera, slow recording. And there it is there. That's how easy it is to create your lessons. Once they're published, as I said, they're up and running. And if we were to go back to our back end, here we can unpublish should we want to. So maybe we've got a lesson that's now redundant and we don't want that in there, or we want to, which we could then unpublish and move it away and then change our lesson names. So maybe lesson 2 is no good anymore for some reason. We unpublish it, we move it out of the way or delete it completely, and then just change lesson 3 to lesson 2, course changed. As simple as that. When I set up this course, I didn't use chapters, okay, but chapters are simply another subsection of a module. So you've got your module, which is the top level. You can have chapters, which are an intermediate level, and then your lessons, which are the actual working through level. But I decided not to use chapters in this particular structure and just stuck with a course with currently 1 module in it, and in that module there are 3 lessons. And that is what we saw when we come back to the course here. You see there's module 1, it has 3 lessons, and module 1 is called preparing to set up, and preparing to set up is within the course how to create a membership site. So that's it. You've now been shown how to set up your site. You've been shown how to do the templates and modify them the way you want to. you've been shown how to set up a module within the course that you create, and now you've been shown how to set up a lesson. The rest of doing your site is just repetition of those processes over and over again until you've got your site exactly the way you want it, in preparation for people to use it. In future videos, I'm going to be looking at how to create those little elements of drip content and so forth. But the next step in this process now is to actually add this course into a product. So we create a product and then we add this course into it. And now I can use that product and I could advertise it in places. It becomes an online e-commerce element. So I'll explain that when I get into the course. Until then, so if you like these videos, hit the like button and then smash that subscribe button, and also hit the bell notification too, because that tells YouTube that you want more of these type of videos. Thanks.